Picture the drink's fridge at any gas station. Bright red cans of regular soda. Sleek silver cans promising 0 sugar and 0 guilt. And rows of fruit juice boxes with a smiling orange on the label, looking like the responsible choice next to both. If you had to grab just one, which would you actually trust with your heart? Added sugar has a very specific meaning. It is not the sugar naturally found in an apple or a glass of milk. It is the sugar and syrup poured into food and drinks during processing, the kind hiding in ice cream, candy, flavored yogurt, and regular soft drinks. National nutrition surveys in the United States point to one single culprit as the biggest source of that added sugar: sugar-sweetened beverages. They show up heaviest among the people who already eat the most sugar overall, across every single age group, from teenagers to retirees. So here is a question worth sitting with for a second. If sugary drinks are the single biggest source of added sugar in the average diet, why does the conversation about heart disease so rarely start there? Surprisingly little research has directly tested added sugar itself against heart disease risk. One review combed through 24 long-term studies and found only 2 that even looked at added sugar and cardiovascular death specifically. Those 2 studies combined pointed to only a 3% higher risk, a number too small and too shaky to build real health advice on. A later review added 2 more studies pointing the same direction. But one study out of Hong Kong found the opposite pattern in older adults, an inverse link between added sugar and cardiovascular death. In other words, the science on added sugar itself has been thinner and messier than most people assume. And diet drinks complicate the picture even more. According to the American Heart Association, the long-term effect of artificial sweeteners on heart and metabolic health is still genuinely controversial, not settled science dressed up as controversy for headlines. One review found that swapping diet drinks in for sugary ones help people lose weight, lower their body mass index, and reduce fat stored in the liver. That sounds like good news for diet soda. But another large pooled analysis found the exact opposite when it came to heart risk. Artificially sweetened drinks were linked to a higher risk of dying from cardiovascular disease, especially among people drinking more than 2 servings a day. 2 respected reviews. 2 completely different conclusions about the same drinks. Both cannot be fully right, which is exactly the kind of contradiction that should make you curious instead of just picking whichever answer you already wanted to hear. Then there is fruit juice, usually seen as the healthy middle ground between soda and diet soda. It carries real vitamins, but it has also been linked to a higher risk of diabetes in some research, while its relationship to heart disease specifically has stayed unclear. Almost no study had tried to compare added sugar, sugary drinks, diet drinks, and fruit juice side by side in the same group of people, using the same methods and the same follow-up period. Each piece of the puzzle kept getting studied alone. Have you ever swapped your usual soda for the diet version and felt a little proud of yourself, like you had just made the healthy choice without giving up the fizz? What if that swap was not doing what you thought it was doing? There is also a reason researchers eventually zeroed in on women past menopause to test this question. Once the ovaries slow down hormone production, the natural protection those hormones once offered against heart disease and stroke fades along with it. That makes this stage of life one of the more revealing windows for testing how diet interacts with cardiovascular risk. Whatever a woman's drink of choice does to her arteries, this is the period where it tends to show up first. Have you ever wondered why doctors still cannot seem to agree on whether diet soda actually helps or hurts your heart? One well-known review found that swapping to diet drinks helped people lose weight and improve their metabolic markers. Another large pooled analysis found diet drinks linked to a higher risk of dying, specifically from cardiovascular disease. Both of those findings came from serious, peer-reviewed research. Both cannot be fully right at the same time. So picture the scale of sugar in modern life for a second. A little over a century ago, sugar was a genuine luxury, reserved for special occasions in most households around the world. Today it is stirred into bread, pasta sauce, salad dressing, and granola bars marketed as health food. Assessing added sugar accurately turns out to be harder than it sounds, too. Naturally occurring sugar and added sugar are chemically identical once they hit your bloodstream, so there is no simple blood test that can tell a nutritionist how much of your sugar intake came from an apple versus a candy bar. That is part of why sugar hides so well inside foods that look perfectly innocent on the shelf. A jar of pasta sauce, a flavored oatmeal packet, a granola bar with a green leaf on the label, sugar rides along quietly in all of them. And fruit juice sits right in the middle of that confusion. It gets marketed next to fresh produce, styled as the healthy choice, while carrying nearly as much sugar per glass as the soda sitting one shelf over. For sugar itself, scientists have a fairly clear picture of how it might damage the heart over years of steady intake. A sugary drink causes a rapid spike in blood glucose and insulin. Do that often enough, and the body can start resisting insulin's signals altogether, a state linked to weight gain and chronic inflammation. That kind of inflammation and insulin resistance is a major driver of metabolic syndrome, a cluster of conditions that dramatically raises the odds of a heart attack or stroke down the road. Excess sugar also gets converted into fat in the liver, raising triglyceride levels in the blood, another well-documented risk factor for cardiovascular disease. For diet drinks, the story is murkier, and that is precisely what makes it interesting. Since they contain few or no calories, the usual glucose and insulin explanation does not really apply. So researchers have floated a few other theories instead. Maybe artificial sweeteners do not fully satisfy the brain's craving for sweetness, so people end up eating more elsewhere to compensate. Maybe they shift the balance of bacteria living in the gut in ways that affect how the body handles sugar. Or maybe compounds tied to the caramel coloring used in many diet colas quietly promote low-grade inflammation over time. None of those explanations is proven yet. But for women already facing a steeper cardiovascular climb after menopause, even a modest, poorly understood risk is worth taking seriously rather than shrugging off just because the can says 0 calories. So if you were designing a study to finally settle this fight between sugar, diet drinks, and fruit juice, what would you actually need? A huge number of participants, many years of honest follow-up, and careful accounting for every other factor that might muddy the results: smoking, exercise, weight, family history, all of it. That is essentially what happened with one of the largest women's health studies ever run in the United States, a research effort tracking more than 100,000 women for close to 2 decades. So what actually happens to your heart if you swap sugar for a diet version every single day for years on end? Researchers followed 109,034 postmenopausal women for an average of 4 years as part of the Women's Health Initiative, one of the most detailed long-running health studies of women in the United States. During that time, 11,597 of them developed some form of cardiovascular disease. Women who drank at least one diet beverage a day had a 14% higher risk of total cardiovascular disease and a 24% higher risk of stroke compared with women who mostly skipped them, even after accounting for weight, exercise, smoking, and dozens of other factors. Diet, in this case, was tracked with a detailed food questionnaire covering 122 different items, filled out at the start of the study and again 3 years later, giving researchers a real picture of habits sustained over time rather than a single snapshot. Added sugar told its own story too. Women who got 15% or more of their daily calories from added sugar, roughly 1 in 5 women in the study, had an 8% higher risk of total cardiovascular disease and a 20% higher risk of coronary heart disease compared with women who stayed under 10%. Sugar-sweetened drinks pushed the numbers even further. Women having at least 1 serving a day faced a 29% higher risk of total cardiovascular disease, a 35% higher risk of coronary heart disease, a 35% higher risk of heart failure, and a 30% higher risk of stroke. Even just 1 soft drink a week was tied to a 10% bump in cardiovascular risk. To check whether this pattern held up beyond a single study, the researchers also pooled results from 21 separate cohort studies covering thousands more people. In that combined analysis, artificially sweetened drinks actually carried the strongest link to cardiovascular death and stroke of the 3 categories tested, ahead of both sugary drinks and added sugar itself. Fruit juice, meanwhile, came out looking a little better than expected. Drinking at least 1 serving a week was linked to a slightly lower risk of coronary heart disease, a reminder that lumping every sweetened beverage into a single bucket misses real, measurable differences between them. None of this proves that any single can of soda causes a heart attack on its own. This was an observational study, following women over time rather than randomly assigning them to different diets, so it can reveal a strong statistical pattern, not direct, ironclad proof of cause and effect. Women who drank more soda in the study also tended to smoke more and exercise less, habits the researchers adjusted for mathematically but could never fully erase from the picture. The study also looked only at postmenopausal women, so it cannot say whether the same pattern holds for men or for younger women. Even with those limits, the size of the group, the length of the follow-up, and a matching pattern across 21 other independent studies make this a hard result to wave away as pure coincidence. So the next time you are standing in front of that drink's fridge, the sugary can on one side and the diet can on the other, it might be worth remembering that neither one has a clean bill of health where your heart is concerned. The safest choice standing quietly next to both of them the whole time was probably the tap. This research comes from Yang and colleagues, published in the journal Nutrients in 2022, drawing on data from the Women's Health Initiative and a network analysis of studies from around the world.